Welcome to Haltech Elite NSP Training Part 77. In this training module, we're going to be exploring setting up and working with our race timer feature. This is useful for drag racing purposes, so we can have a timer that's going to allow us to offset something like our nitrous or boost control as we're going down the drag strip. Without further wait, let's jump in so we can check out how to set up our race timer feature.
Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our race timer feature found within our Haltech Elite using our NSP software. Now, a race timer is primarily a drag race feature. It's going to allow us to pair a timer that we can start or initiate when we launch our vehicle going down the drag strip. We can utilize this timer against nitrous or boost control or other features and functions such as some type of a power management. So it allows us to stage nitrous or stage boost coming in so we gain traction after we launch. And we can also repurpose it for other things. We're going to take a look at a full throttle timer. So if we're under full throttle more than a certain period of time, then it's going to go ahead and initiate a fuel and spark timing offset correction. So we don't have too high of EGTs or put ourselves into an unsafe condition for the engine to operate at full throttle for extended periods of time. So let's jump in here. Let's take a look at setting up and working with a race timer. We're first going to take a look at how we can configure this for boost control. We'll take a look at a nitrous example, and then we'll also take a look again at that full throttle example for a timer to initiate some type of a fuel and spark timing offset. There's so many things we can do with the race timer. This is going to be a couple examples of what you can accomplish using the race timer. So let's jump in here and take a look. We're going to move from our fuel tuning page over to our main page and then over here into our navigation tree. We're going to expand our navigation tree out, and we're going to go right under Vehicle Functions. Under Vehicle Functions, under the Motorsport tab here, we're going to find that the race timer is what we want to toggle on. So let's go ahead and turn that on, and we'll do a quick reboot on the Elite so that it's accepting those changes. The next thing we're going to find here under Vehicle Functions is that the race timer here appears. Now we have a couple of different things to consider. We have our start conditions when we actually want the timer to start and start counting, and then we have our pause option. This would be if you want to pause the timer, let's say during the run, and then a reset. This resets the timer back to 0 time, and then once we meet the conditions here in the start conditions, the timer starts over. So there's all kinds of different ways we can implement this. Let's take a look here at our start conditions and learning how we can turn this on and initiate the start of the timer. Now, you have to consider what type of vehicle you're working with and what setup you have for the vehicle. If you have an automatic transmission that has a trans brake, that's one of the easiest ways to start the timer, because if you release the trans brake, you're starting your run. And that way we can pair this together at essentially the same time that the run is going to start as you go ahead and leave the initial portion of the launch at the actual drag strip. So we want to be able to tie that together. Trans brake is an excellent way to do that. Now, if you're on a stick shift car, you're going to have to go and base this on something like ground speed or some type of a speed reference, and then also something like your clutch. So if your clutch switch is off, you've come off the clutch to launch the car, and you're above a certain amount of vehicle speed, ground speed, then you can turn on the race timer to start. So again, it's kind of going to depend on what type of vehicle and application you're working with, whether you have an auto with a trans brake or your stick shifts, and you want to be able to turn this on and off based on something like a clutch switch and again, vehicle speed. So let's go ahead and configure this in the conditions. We have up to 3 conditions to start our timer. So the first example here of just kind of configuring our conditions, I'm going to set this up based on a trans brake switch. Now I have already configured my trans brake under our transmission section here. I've toggled it on. So under functions, trans brake, I've configured it and set this up. We will have a separate tutorial taking a look at the configuration and settings for setting and dialing in a trans brake. So right now I've pre-configured it for this tutorial, so we can just use that as a condition to start our race timer or stop our race timer, depending on what you're working with here. And as a result, I'm not going to cover this, but we have that function available. So we will be looking at this in a separate training tutorial. There's a lot of little details here with the trans brake, setting it up and getting it to operate exactly how you'd like. So let's go here into race timer. So we can use that as a runtime condition to turn this timer on or off. What I'm going to do here is set 3 separate conditions. I'm going to set one based on the trans brake state, one set on something like throttle position, and then we can also do one set on RPM. So this should all meet the conditions for the timer to start. So let's go ahead and demonstrate this real quick. So I'm going to go in here to select, and the first option here I'm going to type in, since I've set up my trans break, I'll type in trans, and we can see trans break input state or trans break state. I'm going to use the input state. That's the raw status of the switch input. It's either active or inactive. So I'm going to go ahead and choose and click OK. Now what we're going to say here, we have some options for this condition to be met: equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. In this case, I'm going to say that I want the switch status to be inactive, so it turns off. That's going to be when the timer should start, when it's inactive. And
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.